Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Here are the stories we're following today.
We begin with the latest on pro-Palestinian college protests expanding across the country. Students at Columbia University are now occupying parts of a campus building. We get the very latest now with Bloomberg's John Tucker in New York.
Dozens of students entered a campus building known as Hamilton Hall after midnight. They barricaded themselves inside, piling tables and chairs to block doors and covered security cameras. Columbia University remains the epicenter of the demonstrations taking place on campuses across the country and even around the world. The school is now suspending students who refused to abide by yesterday's deadline to vacate an encampment. Seta Pollitt, one of the organizers, refuses to go and calls the protests peaceful and unifying.
There has been no violence on this encampment. Students from diverse backgrounds have shared their religious observances together.
Well, protesters at the University of Texas campus in Austin, they witnessed a forceful response from local law enforcement and state police, some in riot gear. At UCLA, students and faculty took part in a walkout. John Tucker, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, John, thank you. Well, as those campus protests intensify, the White House is pressuring Hamas to accept a ceasefire deal with Israel. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has called Israel's offer extraordinarily generous. White House Press Secretary Quinn agrees.
Now is the time for Hamas to take this deal. It is on the table. It is way past time to get these hostages home.
White House spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre says Hamas, not Israel, is the bigger obstacle to peace. President Biden spoke yesterday with the leaders of Egypt and Qatar to put even further pressure on Hamas. Egyptian state media report Hamas plans to give a written response to Israel's ceasefire offer, but it's not saying when.
Turning to markets now, Karen, there is an unexpected change of the guard at one of the world's biggest banks. Let's go to London and get the details on that from Bloomberg Daybreak Europe anchor Caroline Hepker. Good morning, Caroline.
Good morning, Nathan and Karen. HSBC CEO Noel Quinn is stepping down after some 5 years for a portfolio career and a better work-life balance. It was a surprise decision, but you can't say Quinn hasn't delivered with record profits last year and a 35% jump in the share price. As for first quarter results, pre-tax profits dipped 1.8%, but beat estimates. Plus, there's that $3 billion share buyback. The bank is now looking at candidates near and far to replace Quinn, who'll stay on during a transition. His successor's main challenge, grabbing growth in Asia and managing tough US-China ties. In London, I'm Caroline Hepker, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, Caroline, thank you. That buyback news seems to be impressing investors. Checking shares of HSBC, they are higher by more than 3% in London.
Well, Nathan, we have management changes here in the U.S. as well. The CEO of Paramount, Bob Bakish, is stepping down. He'll be replaced by a trio of top executives, and we get more from Bloomberg's Doug Krisner.
It comes as Paramount negotiates a possible sale to David Ellison. Ellison wants to merge the company with his Skydance Media. He's been talking with Sherry Redstone, Paramount's controlling shareholder. However, some Paramount investors are against a deal. They say it would enrich Redstone at the expense of other investors. So now the olive branch. Ellison is proposing to buy $3 billion of Paramount shares at a premium, and Redstone is in favor of letting non-voting shareholders have a say on any transaction. In terms of earnings, Paramount's results topped estimates thanks to the broadcast of the Super Bowl and narrower losses from streaming. In New York, I'm Doug Krisner, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, Doug, thanks. Turn to the economy now. The Fed is beginning its two-day policy meeting today. While just about everyone expects Jay Powell and company to stand pat on rates, investors, including Matt Miskin at John Hancock Investment Management, expect a more hawkish tone from the Fed chair.
I think Powell's got to come in and really actually shake it up. You put this into context. The last 6 months, they've been way too dovish, and they may have actually reaccelerated inflation just from the forward guidance that they provided 6 months ago. I think he's naturally a dove. He might have to come to the dark side a little bit and become a bit of a hawk here, and you might see a bit of a repricing in markets as a result.
It's Matt Miskin at John Hancock. That Fed decision and Powell press conference, it all begins tomorrow at 2 p.m. Wall Street time.
While investors await the Fed decision, Nathan, the barrage of earnings keeps coming in. Today, we'll hear from 4 dozen companies in the S&P 500, and headlining that list is Amazon. We get a preview from Bloomberg's Tom Busby.
The big focus for investors, how much the company's artificial intelligence efforts have given its Amazon Web Services unit, already the largest player in cloud services, a boost. It's also facing a lot of competition from Microsoft and Alphabet's Google division. Now, this will also be Amazon's first earnings report since it introduced an ad-supported tier to its Prime Video service in January, creating a new source of revenue. Consensus calls for overall net revenue of $142.59 billion, about 40% of that from online sales. Earnings per share of 82 cents. Tom Busby, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Tom, thank you. More job cuts are reportedly on the way at Tesla. The Information is reporting Elon Musk is planning hundreds more layoffs as 2 more senior executives leave the company. The fresh round of cuts comes just weeks after Tesla announced it would lay off more than 10% of its workforce.
And Nathan, while Tesla cuts jobs, Elon Musk's wealth continues to rebound. In the past 5 days, Musk's net worth has gone up more than $37 billion. According to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, Musk added $18.5 billion to his fortune yesterday alone after Tesla shares rose 15% on optimistic news from the Chinese market. With a net worth of more than $201 billion, Musk is close to overtaking second place Jeff Bezos after he surpassed Mark Zuckerberg on the Billionaires Index last week.
Well, Karen, some of Elon Musk's competitors in the automotive space are delivering disappointing numbers. First quarter sales at Stellantis, maker of Jeep and Fiat cars, slumped 12%, led by declines in the U.S. Slower electric vehicle demand in Europe was also a drag, and Stellantis shares are down about 2%.
And Nathan, Mercedes-Benz's earnings plummeting 34% in the first quarter. The German luxury automaker was weighed down by model changes and sluggish EV demand, and shares are down about 4%. And it's time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. For that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. A grim story out of Charlotte, North Carolina. 4 officers trying to serve a warrant for a felon wanted for possessing a firearm were killed, and 4 other officers were wounded in a shootout. The officers killed the suspect outside the Charlotte home yesterday after he fired on them. Officers who rushed to rescue the downed officers were themselves wounded by a second shooter firing from inside the home. Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Chief Johnny Jennings was emotional when he informed the media late last night that one of the officers, Joshua Iyer, who was critically injured, had died.
He's survived by his wife, Ashley, and his 3-year-old son, Andrew. We'll always be indebted to Officer Iyer for his bravery.
Chief Jennings says Officer Iyer was a 6-year veteran of the force and just one Officer of the Month. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper.
There really aren't words that you can say, because obviously the families of these officers who've lost their lives this afternoon are in shock and despair.
A woman and a 17-year-old male were taken away for questioning after the 3-hour standoff ended. Overall crime on New York City's subway system is down 6.4% from last year's pace as the nation's largest mass transit provider seeks to boost safety and rider confidence. According to the NYPD, there were 661 reported crimes this year through April 28th. That's down from 706 during the same period in 2023. The drop coincides with a 57% increase in total arrests. Britain's King Charles resumed some public duties today. Charles's return to at least some public duties is taking pressure off wife Camilla and son and heir William, who himself took family leave last month after his wife Kate revealed her cancer diagnosis as well. No date is set for her return to public life. Finally, Hot Dog City Field. At tonight's Mets game against the Chicago Cubs, fans will be able to buy Nathan's hot dogs for $1 at the ballpark. There's a limit of 4 hot dogs per transaction, or when they run out, or when you get full. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it. With Bloomberg News Now, I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg Karen.
How many does it take, Michael Barr? Is 4 enough?
No, not for me.
All right. Well, Michael Barr, thank you. And it's time now for the Bloomberg Sports Update. Here's John Stashower. John, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. The Knicks received loud fan support on the road in the 2 games in Philadelphia. You can only imagine what it'll be like tonight at the Garden. Game 5, Knicks up 3-1, a chance to win the series. 2 series in the West ended. Oklahoma City finished a sweep of New Orleans, held the Pelicans to 37% shooting. Lakers and Nuggets, Game 5 in Denver, tie score, final seconds.
Murray has it on the high right side. High pick from Jokic. Murray, jumper from 8. Got it again! 3.6 seconds left for the Lakers. LeBron over to Prince. Jumper's no good at the horn. And the LA Lakers can take that L on the way out.
On Altitude Sports, Jamal Murray wasn't sure he'd play due to a strained calf. He played, scored 32 points. That was his second game-winning shot of the series. The Nuggets move on. And LeBron James will now decide whether to come back for another season. It would be his 22nd, already the NBA's oldest player. LeBron said last night he hasn't yet given it much thought. Celtics got 38 points from Derek White. He made 8 3-pointers, a 102-88 win at Miami. Boston leads the series 3-1. Florida Panthers advance, beat Tampa Bay 6-1, won the series 4-1. Dallas Stars won 4-2 at Vegas. That series tied at 2. The road team has won every game. Mets and Yankees both lost quick, low-scoring games at Citi Field. Brandon Nimmo, a leadoff home run. Mets didn't score again. The Cubs didn't get a hit off Luis Severino until the 8th inning, but they got a 2-run homer in the 9th from Christopher Morel off Edwin Diaz to win 3-1. The game was played in 2 hours, 5 minutes. In Baltimore, leadoff homer for the Orioles, Gunnar Henderson. They later added an unearned run, shut out the Yankees 2-0. Zeke Elliott played 7 years in Dallas, then last season in New England. He's going back to the Cowboys. Travis Kelce got a new 2-year contract from Kansas City. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager. Well, it is a surprise move in global banking. Noel Quinn is stepping down as CEO of HSBC after nearly 5 years at the helm, setting off a sudden process to find a successor to lead Europe's biggest bank. For more, we're joined by Bloomberg's Charlie Wells. Charlie, good morning. As I mentioned, this did seem to come as quite a surprise to a lot of investors. Do you have any better clarity on why Noel Quinn decided to step down now?
Yeah, Nathan, no one saw this coming. I mean, last year, Noel Quinn's pay was actually doubled. So there were just not telegraphs coming out of this bank that this could potentially happen. And now what Quinn said is that he wanted to find a better personal work-life balance. He said that he wants to embark upon a portfolio career. We're not entirely sure what that means. And in comments from executives this morning from HSBC, they haven't given us a lot of indication of why or who could potentially come next. But we do know that whoever comes next is going to have some pretty big shoes to fill, because Quinn was actually at the helm of this bank for almost 5 years. He led it through the height of COVID. He led it through a key shareholder trying to break the bank apart. He successfully fended that off. And he led HSBC through a period of heightened tensions between China and the West. So as I said, pretty big shoes to fill.
Yeah, certainly. And when you think about heightened tensions between China and the West, that gets into the focus that Noel Quinn had during his tenure to pivot attention to the Asia business and sort of diminish some of the more established businesses at HSBC in the U.S. and Europe.
That's exactly right. I mean, HSBC is looking to diversify. So they are a bank that is very reliant on interest rates. They're very sensitive to them. And, recently that's been a huge boon for the bank. Their net interest margin beat expectations in this first quarter. Ostensibly, that's what we were all going to simply hear about today. But of course, we're not hearing about the CEO move. But look, they're pivoting to Asia. They have been under Quinn. And one focus here is wealth management. And in these earnings today, we got some kind of better numbers on wealth management for HSBC. So that bodes well. But this is going to be a big challenge for whoever succeeds Quinn.
Yeah, and I guess we got better numbers just overall, and plus this $3 billion stock buyback. I mean, is that kind of overshadowing or being overshadowed by this succession news that suddenly came out?
Yeah, so shares have been trading up a couple percentage points, which is great, great for the stock. And look, I mean, analysts had been talking before these results about a potential $2 billion buyback. And let's not forget that in February, there was a previously announced $2 billion buyback. So $3 billion, is bigger. And it does show that over his tenure, Quinn has been able to return excess capital to shareholders. So that's going to, again, be a big focus. Can this continue? A lot of analysts have said that some of that capital return is already kind of baked into some of this share price. Something disappointing that I also should mention for some observers of this stock, though, was that forward guidance for HSBC remained the same as it was in February. And so the hope was that in an environment where, rates are looking like they could be higher for longer, that should have boded a bit better for this bank. So that was a little bit of a disappointment.
Only about 30 seconds left, Charlie, but whoever fills Noel Quinn's shoes, can we expect much of a change in focus, a change in strategy from the new CEO at HSBC?
It seems like what the bank is trying to communicate to analysts and investors is that there's going to be a degree of continuity. So they have made clear that, Quinn will be a part of this process. They've said that they want to try to find a successor in the latter half of 2024. There's a world in which Quinn could actually stay into his position well into 2025. And so what that seems to indicate is they want to keep the strategy, again, a focus on that pivot to Asia going strong, and they're trying to communicate that today.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Today, your morning brief on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed at 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, and Bloomberg 960 in San Francisco.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, SiriusXM, the iHeartRadio app, and on Bloomberg.com. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.